Sound podcast with your host, Christine Matthias.
This woman wrote me after and said that she loved it and that it made her feel seen. And I was like, that's it. I succeeded. Like, I don't have to have any career ambition. Like, I don't care about getting famous or getting rich or whatever. It's like if somebody writes to me after a show and says, you made me feel seen, that is like, I feel like I did what I came here to do on this planet.
Hello and welcome to episode number 21 of the Sunshine Sound podcast. I hope you enjoyed our all music episode hosted by Tommy Bobcats. And now we are back to our regularly scheduled programming. And I had the chance to interview Lindsay White. She is, for lack of a better term, a singer-songwriter based here in San Diego and all around just a pretty amazing human being. So when I think about why I started this podcast is really because I wanted to talk to people, because I wanted to make artists and musicians feel seen, to know what they're doing matters, that I hear them, I recognize their efforts, and also to give them a platform to share why they do what they do. And to me, it's always so amazing, the connection that Lindsay has with her music, and how she uses it as a tool to kind of figure out life and to process all these emotions, and how she's able to be so open and vulnerable through her music and also talking about it. And I feel like that's really what this podcast has been about for me, is finding those spaces in art that allow us to be open, to take a step away from the rest of our lives and to sit with these emotions and see where they go, to put them into a piece of art. And then the kind of people in this world who are drawn to that kind of process have a certain kind of self-awareness and understanding of the world. And I find that that's really what comes out in this podcast. So, we talk about things like marketing and touring and the logistics of recording and songwriting, and all that is great. I love hearing about that as another artist, and we all need to figure out those logistics. But it's really in those spaces where I learn about the emotions behind the music and these motivations that have nothing to do with money or ego or fame. There's something else there that we're all chasing. And that's what this is all about. And that's really what I had the chance to learn from this interview. And I hope you do as well. And of course, we'll have a chance to listen to a couple of her really beautiful tracks. So enjoy. Okay, so today in the studio, I have Lindsay White. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
How's your day going?
Oh, it just started and you gave me some coffee, so it's going great so far.
Awesome. So you sent me a lot of really cool tracks. I keep seeing your name come up in the San Diego music scene. So
that's good. That means I'm doing my job.
You're doing something right. So do you want to tell us just like a little bit about what, like the kind of music that you make?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what I would call it. It's kind of based in folk, but it's more, I guess, indie, not quite pop as you hear pop on the radio nowadays, but, kind of in that vein. It's like a contemporary folk, I guess, would be the best way to put it, but with a heavy emphasis on songwriting, lyrics, that kind of thing. So
yeah,
it's my forte, or the thing that I'm most passionate about my music.
And so what do your live performances look like? Do you perform solo?
In most cases, I perform solo. If the venue or event calls for it, I have bandmates as well that I'll put together a band if I need to. But for the most part, it's like listening rooms and house concerts and that sort of thing. So it's just me.
Yeah, I think it's good to be flexible. Like if the audience or if the venue calls for a more full band, you can bring that.
Because what I write, I want people to be able to listen to the lyrics, and so sometimes it doesn't serve me or my songs to drown it all out with a band, or like go play at a large venue where people aren't necessarily listening. That's not sort of like what I'm trying to achieve with my music. So, but then on the flip side, if they're like, hey, do you want to play Art Walk Festival, or do you want to play Art Around Adams or whatever, then it's like, yeah, I should probably put together a band for that, you know?
So do you feel like the lyrics are really the focal point for your music?
Yeah, definitely. That's the part that I care the most about. That's the part that I tend to, I guess, you know? So it's the part that I want to, I've been trying ever since, I don't know if you know that I used to play with a band called the Lovebirds.
Yeah, with Veronica?
With Veronica, yeah. So we were a duo, and we could kind of easily slip in and out of different types of venues and gigs because we played drums as well. So we had like this kind of rock thing that worked sometimes. We had this kind of folk thing that was softer and quieter. And when we sort of decided to go our separate ways, I think I wanted to dig more into like that folk scene and that listening room scene, that house concert scene, just because that's where my heart is in the music is getting a room full of people together to listen to songs. And I want to make people feel things, you know?
Yeah. Do you think that's why you originally got into music, or do you remember like what originally inspired you?
Yeah, I just always have been a fan of words. My dad was an English teacher, so there was always books on books on books. I just read till I couldn't read anymore when I was a kid. I like lived in the library. I was such a geek. And I listened to a lot of music that my dad liked at that time too. So you're such a product of, you know, your environment sometimes. And so he would play a lot of Bob Dylan. And granted, you know, when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, I didn't really understand a lot of the bigger concepts of that music, but I loved the way that he strung his words together in such a powerful way that would make even a little girl like me be like, huh, like that was interesting. And just the older I got and the more I developed an appreciation for the things he was talking about, then I, you know, that joined with the female musicians of like the 90s that I sort of brought into the mix of what I was listening to. I was like, wow, this is really powerful that a woman can put out her own music and put out a whole record of her thoughts and feelings. And, you know, here I am, this little girl in my room with my like little journal and stuff. And then all this music comes out and I'm like, that's a job. Like, that's a career. I want to do that. So yeah, I think it started originally with me just wanting to see how I could put my thoughts and experiences into words in a cool way. But then once I started realizing that you could also affect other people, or you could say things that other people didn't know how to say and help them in that way. That became like a bonus feature, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what instrument did you start on?
I played piano when I was little. So I was a little sister. I have one older sister. She's 3 years older. So she got to do everything first. And they put her in piano lessons, and I was jealous because I wanted to go to piano lessons. But they were like, you're too little. You won't practice. It won't be worth the money. And so I would just like sit there and watch my sister practice for her piano lessons. And I would like mimic what she did until the point that they finally were like, okay, fine, we'll put you in piano lessons. And so I started in piano, and then...
And how old were you when you started?
I don't know, little, really little. And I sang in church and stuff, so music was just always a part of it. And then I played trumpet in my band, in my junior high band. And that was like
the school band?
Yeah, the school band. But I didn't like write music on the trumpet or anything. And then I just kind of randomly by chance picked up the guitar one day at home. My dad had just like a little guitar lying at home, and
like an acoustic?
Yeah, like an acoustic guitar. And I had all this stuff that I had written, like poems and stuff. And I'm like, well, I listen to a lot of music. Maybe I can figure out how to do this. And sort of just kind of, you know, clunked my way through it. And I feel like in some ways I'm still doing that on the guitar. Like I don't know what I'm doing. And I get to play with all these incredible musicians who do know what they're doing, and I feel like such a fraud when it comes to music. But if there's one thing, again, that people like Bob Dylan taught me, like, you don't need to be this like virtuoso musician to be able to put words together in a powerful way, you know? So I've always thought that music, for me, takes a backseat to the words. And so it's like, as long as I can get something together that will support what I have to say, then that's all I need, you know?
Sure. Yeah. Makes total sense.
Yeah.
And so did you ever take like guitar lessons, or are you self-taught?
I mean, here and there, but mostly self-taught, mostly by ear, trying to figure, I mean, thank God for the internet. You can like look up how to play a song. And so I did a lot of that, like learning covers of songs. And then that kind of would teach me one thing here and there. But I mean, I still to this day, like I wish I was a better guitar. It's a goal of mine to get better at the guitar, and because then I feel like I could branch out, you know, and sometimes I feel confined to what I know. And,
sure,
you know, you get stuck sometimes, but.
Yeah. So, so were you like writing songs from the beginning?
Yeah, I would write like little cheesy stories and, you know, poems and little things. I would just have journals and journals of poems, and they're so like dumb and dramatic. Like when you go back and read them, and you're like, when you think you have problems and you don't have problems.
You do still have the journals?
Oh yeah. I somewhere tucked deep away.
I still have my journals too. I'm like, at some point, should I get rid of these? I don't know.
I mean, you go back and you read it and you're like, oh my gosh. And in some ways you're like mimicking the things that you've seen in pop culture, you know, like I'm sure I was listening probably to like a lot of Alanis Morissette, and I just thought she was like the baddest bitch in town because she was just like not afraid to say things. And then when my sister started listening to Ani DeFranco, I was like, oh my God, like a woman can say this stuff out loud and like not be stoned to death. I was just like in awe of it. So of course, like the things that you write start to take that turn and like be dramatic too, even though it's like you don't even know what real problems are yet. So it's kind of, it's definitely embarrassing. Right. The early stuff.
But yeah, man, the 90s were such a great time for women in music. Mm-hmm. It's a great time to be influenced.
You know what's crazy is, so before I got into like really like hardcore feminist type music, there was Jewel, and her album was very, you know, just, it was beautiful and full of emotions and feelings, but it wasn't really taking this like hard stance on what it is to be a woman or anything like that. But that sort of was my first like dipping my toe into like the female 90s music experience. Sure. And now it's just such a trip because, you know, do you know Steve Poltz?
No.
So he was a San Diego based musician and dated Jewel for a while, wrote a lot of that album with her, and co-wrote You Were Meant for Me, which is like one of the first songs I ever learned on the guitar, probably along with, you know, every other one of my female
I think me
guitar
too.
people. And then so like fast forward all these years later, I moved down to San Diego, and like I've played shows with Steve Poltz now, and like it's just such a mind trip to remember myself in that space, you know, this like little 13-year-old girl trying to like figure out how to do things, you know, musically, and just how to be a person and how to take up space in the world. And then fast forward to this, and now it's like I know people who play with him and realize who he is as a songwriter in his own right is just like this amazing person. And I just feel like really lucky because a lot of people can't say that they've come to that point in their life where they've met somebody who was like literally responsible for helping them get started on their journey, you know?
Wow.
Isn't that so weird?
It
trips
weird.
me out sometimes.
Cool.
Yeah. It trips me out.
Yeah. Yeah. And so were you playing guitar like through high school? Were you?
Yeah, I just kind of like did it here
on your own,
here
or
and
did
there.
you ever play with a band or play out or anything?
I played with a band called Road to Ruin. They had me be their, they kind of like brought me into their band, and it was like a rock band, and I probably had no business being there, but they were like, we need a singer. You can sing, come sing.
Was it like all dudes and
yeah, all dudes. And like, I don't know. It was super fun, but it wasn't anything that was going to last. I think I actually got kicked out of that band. I mean, like in a gentle way, maybe gently released from that band would be a better term for it. But
I like that.
It was never like, I wrote songs and stuff, but it was never something where I was like, this is going to be my life goal. I was a basketball player. I was doing basketball and trying to figure out how to get into college and where I was going to go play and all that stuff. So music was more just back burner at that point.
Yeah. Gotcha. And then so when did it become
front
a bigger
burner?
part? Yes, front burner.
Front burner. Well, I moved down here to San Diego to coach basketball. I thought that was going to be like my path. And I got a job coaching at Mesa College. And so I assisted there for one season. And it was just kind of one of those things where after a season of it, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, it's
just
so
one
weird.
Season?
Yeah. And well, I had been playing basketball all my life. My dad was a coach, and I just had somehow got locked in this thought process of I'm going to be a basketball coach and that's what I'm going to do. And then it was that one season of coaching where I was like, is this even what I want to do? Like, I don't think it is. And it was like this aha moment for me where I'm like, I don't know what I want to do, but I don't think this is it. And it's funny because, you spend your whole life kind of being like set in your idea of your goal. And then when your goal just sort of fizzles, you're like, what the heck should I do now?
Yeah.
So
it's kind of a groundlessness feeling.
Yeah,
right?
totally. So, I just took to Craigslist and got some random job that ended up being like a event planning company job that I locked down somehow for 10 years. And then that's when I really started to focus on music. So I was like, okay, I've got a job, decent salary, I can pay my bills. So any free moment from now on, I'm just going to do music. And that's sort of how the transition started taking place for me to, start to do it full-time as I could.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then so from the beginning, were you playing solo? Were you trying to join a band or what were you doing?
I met some musicians that I still sometimes play with today. That I would do again, like if the venue called for it, I would put a band together. And then I met Veronica May through Catherine. Do you know Catherine Beeks?
I don't think so.
Catherine Beeks is like this angel woman music hub of San Diego who, when I was getting started out in San Diego, would put on these showcases called Listen Local San Diego. And she would like have different nights and different venues around town. And she would give you like a 20-25 minute showcase as opposed to just like going to open mic and be like, here are my 2 songs, so it like felt like a show. And through her, I met pretty much everyone, but I met Veronica, and we started, long story short, we started playing music together. And so it was like right as I was sort of getting my feet wet as like a solo musician. I barely had any like time to do that before I just kind of jumped into this other thing. And it happened by accident. Like she started singing with me on some of my band shows, like harmonies or whatever. And then we were dating at the time, so we were writing a lot together. And it just naturally sort of turned into this thing, this life of its own, and suddenly we were the Lovebirds, and that was what we focused on. So that became like the focal point for the next 6 years was that duo.
Nice.
It's only been in the last like year and a half that I've been doing my own thing again.
Yeah.
Which is
cool.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Lovebirds, they seem like you two play it around a lot.
Oh
with
yeah.
that act. Yeah.
We played around town a lot. We toured a lot, and it was great. We dated for half the time that we were a band. So we dated for 3 years. We were a band for 6 years. And yeah, it was cool. It was
and the band survived.
The band survived. The band survived for a while.
That's impressive.
Yeah,
Is it challenging?
Oh yeah. I mean, yes and no. Veronica and I have a relationship that it's been a roller coaster in some ways, but also on the flip side of the coin, I could say that it's also been very steady, and like we both know that we'll always be in each other's lives, and it just kind of turned into something different. But musically, anyway, it was great, and I think people liked the Lovebirds because it was this duo. They're lesbians, like they sing these love songs, and it was kind of like different and unique for some people, I think. So for me, I was like, this is probably more, I don't want to say marketable because that sounds cheesy, but people look for something unique and interesting when you're trying to put out your project and sell your project and get gigs and promote
something
and all.
to get their attention.
And that definitely was that. And now when, you know, we're still friends, we still hang out, and we talk about kind of the different struggles that we have now being just us, you know. And I think I can't speak for her, but particularly for me, I found as I put out my solo record, it was almost like I was starting over again. Like, still talking to the same people, still trying to get the same gigs, still trying to enter the same festivals and things we had already done. Like, I'm already experienced in this realm, but people were just like, who are you? And I was like, oh, it's just me. It's same person, you know, just going by my name now. I'm not a bird now. I'm a person. And it's been a little bit of a struggle, I would say, just trying to reestablish myself. It feels like in many ways I'm a newbie, but I'm an old newbie. You know, it's like I have all this experience under my belt, but I'm starting over.
Sure. Yeah. I think it takes some commitment and passion for music to be able to do that. I've done similar things with one band ending and starting over with another band, and I find that it can be hard to get that energy back. Like, totally. Especially with your first band, I think I had so much energy to be booking shows and doing all the hustle. Like, was it hard to kind of rekindle that new energy?
Totally. And I think part of that is just age too. I mean, in some ways, I will definitely say like the wind sort of was out of my sail after that band ended. And I was just like, okay, how am I going to do this again? Do I even want to do this again? Do I want to keep doing this? But I think some of it too is just it's age, and like even though it is harder and you're like, oh my God, do I feel like I'm getting nowhere? Like the struggle to climb this like impossible mountain just feels like overwhelming at times. But at the same token, on the same page, like you become a lot more wiser about how you want to spend your energy and like what kinds of shows you want to book and what kinds of people you want to reach out to. So it's easier to say no, and it's easier to like be like, I'm not going to play for free, or why would I submit to play this show when it's not the right fit for me? So I think you learn these like little lessons along the way where you get smarter about your time and energy just because you're getting older and you're like, I don't even want to put on a bra. Like, I'm not gonna like exhaust myself like to try to get nowhere, you know? So it's been, I would say that's the silver lining to getting older and picking your battles, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I like that perspective. It sounds more optimistic.
Yeah.
Than just feeling defeated like I feel sometimes.
Yeah. I think people don't understand truly how hard it is. You know, from the music side is great, and that's the part where you get to be creative and sensitive and emotional and vulnerable and all the stuff that artists like to dig into. But the business side is no joke, and if you feel like you're alone in that battle, like it can easily become just sort of detrimental to your identity, I would say, because so much of who you are is wrapped into this thing that you're trying to sell or this brand that you're trying to create. So you start to get confused about what's real and what's not. And, you know, and it's hard to separate a success or a failure from your own personal identity, you know?
Right. Totally. I totally get that. Yeah. And I think also now as a solo artist, it's all on you.
Right.
Has that been challenging? Because I feel like when I've been in bands, it's kind of like my energy dips a little bit and then someone else will pick it up. But doing solo stuff, it's all on you to keep that train going, you know?
I have a very, as hard as it is, I have a good brain and mindset for that side of it, and I've always just sort of naturally been the one to to take that stuff on anyway because it's just the way my brain functions. And I don't want to call myself a control freak, but I'm kind of a control freak. And so doing it by myself has not actually been that different, but in some ways I feel like I have a guard up or a wall up that I don't necessarily want to have up, but there's part of me that's like, girl, you better not ever get in another band because maybe you're going to take a left turn down another road, and then what if that doesn't work out, and then you'll have to go back to this other road you were on like 6 miles back from where you start, so it's like constantly in the back of my head that's like, don't trust anyone, and don't open yourself up to possibilities. And so I struggle with that because I'm kind of a guarded person anyway. I have a lot of anxiety issues, so it's hard for me to just be like free and open and like, yeah, man, let's jam, like let's see what this turns into, because I'm just like, no, like stay on track, and don't deviate from your main path. And so that's stuff about myself that I'm aware of that I need to kind of like work on.
Sure. Yeah. But you could be aware of it and know what that voice sounds like.
Yeah. You're like, how am I going to protect myself, but at the same time be open to whatever, opportunities. Like I don't want to miss anything just because I'm too busy having a stick up my ass,
Totally. All right, let's take a quick break here. I want to play one of your tracks. So let's play this one. It's called Not a Boy.
Oh, yeah.
Comes the bride, all dressed in white, and the biggest grin anyone's ever seen her wearing. It's 1,000,000 miles wide. Couple empty chairs, 'cause you're not there, but she's brave enough to pass them up because she knows love's waiting for her on the other side. You won't see her smile on her wedding day. Walk her down the aisle, give her away. You won't know her joy, hear her vow. I'm not a boy that changes things somehow. Comes the bride, still quite surprised that the woman waiting for me just so happens to adore me, and she wants to be my wife. Those empty chairs, they're hard to bear, but there's love in the air, and I'm still gonna swear to love her for the rest of her life. You won't see her smile on her wedding day. Walk her down the aisle, give her away. You won't know her joy, hear her vow. I'm
we're back. That was a really beautiful track.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that was off of your last full length album, right? So
Yeah.
That was Lights Out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that just came out last year, right?
Yeah, last July. So it just turned a year old, which is like ancient in music terms.
Yeah. And so when did you had another full length album before that?
Yeah. So before the Lovebirds, I put out a record called Tracks, and that was my first full length. And then this is my second, but in many ways kind of feels like my first because, you know, I kind of had my stuff together a little bit more. This album felt more like a debut album in some ways. Sometimes I listen to my first one and I'm like, who was that? I mean, don't get me wrong, I like that album, but it just feels like a different person wrote it.
So when you perform now, are you mostly performing songs off of this new album?
Yeah, and also like new songs that haven't been recorded yet. I get into that trap sometimes as a songwriter where it's like, God, I know I should be promoting this album because that's why I'm here on tour, but I want to play all my new stuff.
I know. I always want to just play the new stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And we all do that. But I try to play like a mix of ones from this record and new ones too.
Gotcha. And so were these songs off this newish album, like were those a long time in the making?
Some of them, yes. There's a song on there called Colder Feet that was actually a really old song. I wrote it when I was leaving my husband, actually, many years ago and coming out of the closet. And it was a song that I've had for a long time, but it didn't fit anywhere in the Lovebird situation, you know? So, like, I was sort of stockpiling all these songs about my journey as an individual. So when it came time to record that record, I wanted to make sure that one got on there. It's sort of like an apology to my ex-husband for just me not knowing who I was at the time, and that had severe consequences for his life, you know? It was kind of, sort of like a side effect, and I always felt super guilty about that. So I wanted to make sure that that song got on there. But the rest are just kind of arranged, mostly newer, I would say.
Yeah. Did your ex-husband ever hear the song? Yeah. That's interesting.
I hope so. I mean, I told him about it, but I'm not going to like force him. I'm not going to like show up with a boombox like John Cusack outside his window, like, listen to this. You know? I'm sorry.
Right. And then so when you're in the Lovebirds, like you felt like you... did you two write songs individually? Did you write collaboratively?
Yeah, in the beginning we wrote a lot together. As we sort of moved forward in the band and the relationship, it became more of like, I just wrote this song. Will you come help me figure out the arrangement? So like we contributed to each other's songs more as the band went on. We talked a lot in our music about mental health. So that was sort of became the glue that held our band together, and musically speaking anyway, because have you had Veronica on here before?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, did she talk about bipolar and all that stuff?
Yeah.
So she was sort of writing from the perspective of being a person with bipolar. I was sort of writing from the perspective of being the person who was a caretaker or a support figure and how that looks. I was just learning all that for myself. So I definitely got a lot of music out of that for sure. And, you know, have my own issues with anxiety and depression and stuff. So I feel like we became, as a duo, sort of like a mouthpiece for mental health issues, mental health community, and love and just resilience in general, you know? But with my solo stuff, that was kind of more hardline my identity, not just like how do I fit in to this relationship with this person, but like, who am I? What has my journey been as I have come into my own identity and sexuality and what have you, and my relationships with my family and things like that.
Yeah. So do you think that as you continue to write music, it's all in that similar vein? Like,
Yeah. I would say my stuff is a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? Existential. I ponder life and its meaning, you know, like the experiences that I've had have sort of made me question a lot of things that I grew up to believe as fact that turned out was not fact. You know what I mean? Like I grew up in a very religious household where it wasn't even, the thought didn't cross my mind that I could be gay because it just wasn't even an option, you know? And so as I move forward in my life with these relationships with like my mom, for example, who I didn't speak to for 6 years because of all this. And I question things that are just told to kids, you know, like kids grow up in these situations where they're just, of course, they're going to believe what they're told at face value in a church or a school or whatever it is. And as I'm kind of coming out of that and realizing that you can be your own person and think for yourself, like I find myself writing about that. Like, what does it even mean to be a family member? What does it even mean to be a non-religious person who is also constantly thinking about spiritual things? You know, like, am I allowed to be a spiritual person because I've turned my back essentially on everything that I was taught, you know, in church? So I always have these big, broad, what does it all mean kind of questions that I end up writing about a lot. And this record was a lot about grief just because it just coincided with the whole thing of my mom getting sick and losing her and everything. So how do you avoid talking about that, you know?
Right. Yeah. So a lot of emotions and experiences and questions packed into this one album.
So much.
Yeah.
So much.
But I mean, that's kind of the point of music, you know,
Totally.
like that space to explore those things. And do you feel like that growing up listening to music, when you had these big questions and things, that you would turn to listening to whatever artist that you were listening to kind of look for answers and things?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think those early days with, you know, Ani sticks out in my brain just because she was one of the first women that I heard speak so eloquently about identity issues. That was where I kind of first started being like, like, you can be yourself. You know, it's such a foreign concept sometimes as a woman in the world that you are allowed to take up space in where you are exactly as you are. And it sounds so simple, but it's so hard, you know? And so, yeah, I think music for sure helped me get through all of that. And I hope I could do the same for other people. I mean, that's the goal, right?
Yeah, definitely. Do you feel like that is one of your big motivators for continuing to play music?
I mean, there's like that initial seed of like, I feel inspired to write a song right now because of what I am thinking about or going through. It's very, I don't want to say selfish, but like very internal, personal. And then I play it and record it or whatever. And once I hit share, then it's like, yeah, let's see if this helps anybody in any way. Or if somebody says, yeah, like I feel like that and I didn't know how to say it. Like that's the number one compliment I think you could give me is like, I just played a show in Seattle as a house concert. I love house concerts, by the way. Please let me play in your living room, anyone out there listening. But this woman wrote me after and said that she loved it and that it made her feel seen. And I was like, that's it. I succeeded. Like, I don't have to have any career ambition. Like, I don't care about getting famous or getting rich or whatever. It's like if somebody writes to me after a show and says, you made me feel seen, that is like, I feel like I did what I came here to do on this planet, you know? Like, it feels so good to know that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you, like, going back to kind of talking about the having to market your stuff. And so it's like you create this song, you know, you're completely open and vulnerable. And then does it give you any kind of, is it challenging for you? Does it give you any kind of anxiety to be just putting this stuff out into the world, to just sharing it on Facebook and Instagram and waiting for those responses or no responses to come in?
Yeah, I mean, it's hit and miss, you know, so you can't, again, I think that the good thing that comes with age is gaining some perspective about like whether or not people like it. That's not really the point. It's nice when they do, but it doesn't make or break like who you are as a person. And that's a hard lesson to learn, but an important one as you go along. And that's not really, I mean, yeah, the marketing side of it is hard, as in like, here's this album I just made, please buy it. Like that part sucks.
Yeah.
It feels gross, and to just constantly all the time be like, hey, everybody, do this, buy this, look at this, look at me, da-da-da. So I always say, like, the day I quit music is the day you will never see my face ever on social media or the internet ever again, because it's like this bad but necessary gross addiction, and you have to do it. Like,
Yeah.
unless you can afford to have someone do it for you, you have to do it for yourself, and it sucks. But at the same time, I try as hard as I can to extract whatever like human relationships I can out of it. Like I try to make any interaction that I have online with people genuine, and actually like be like, hey, maybe we should meet up for coffee in the real world sometime, and because it can become a weird version of reality, this like digital realm, it's not real.
Right. Yeah. And there's kind of two sides to it, because in one way social media is great for, newer, smaller artists to potentially reach a lot more people, but then it has this kind of other inauthentic, gross side to it.
Yeah, it can be really ugly. I'm actually, I'm in that headspace right now, and I'm thinking about it a lot because I'm doing like a songwriting workshop for these kiddos at the Girls Rock Camp.
Oh, awesome.
And
it's next week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking a lot about that, and how it forces you to think, like, what do I like the most about being a songwriter? Because I have to share it with these people. Like, I have to kind of sell songwriting as a whole. Like, why should you be excited about songwriting? And I've been thinking about, like, the reason why it's so powerful, especially now in this digital world that we live in, is we are reaching like a point, I think, in our society where there's so much information coming at us at all times, and it's all jumbled together. It's like, here's a funny cat video. Also, your president sucks. Also, we might be at war. Also, your niece won a dance competition. And it's like all coming at you like at the same speed in your feed or whatever. And like, we're becoming so incapable of articulating how any of it makes us feel, or like sitting with it for any amount of time and processing it. And so being a songwriter, that it's so cool, because it's like having a superpower. You can just like pluck one of those feelings, or emojis or whatever, and just sort of like keep pulling the string and being like, but really, how does this make me feel? And like, let's sit with this for more than a nanosecond and really draw out the feelings and articulate them in a cool way that will make people stop and be like, oh, like, I never thought about that. Because we're losing that. We're like losing that ability, and it's scary. So I feel like, I mean, I don't want to say it's like better to be a songwriter than like a doctor, but I'm kind of in that boat right now.
Sure. It's just different. But yeah, totally. It has a way of music has a way of slowing down time, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can also be challenging in that world that you're describing to ask for people's time and attention on any one thing. So if you can grab it, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And just ask people to just stop and think for a second, I think is important, especially now.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And so you're playing, you've played a ton of shows all over. Like how, like you talked a little bit about transitioning to your solo stuff, how that's been to get shows, but do you feel like you're at this point where you're constantly having to hustle for new shows, or what's it like for you?
Yeah, I have, well, there's like kind of two different branches, I guess, of the same tree. One is like, how am I going to pay my bills? And so that's a different kind of show. And that's more where, the hustle comes in. I lost my job last year, the steady one. So I've been doing music a lot more as a monetary thing. And those are, those are just jobs. It's great. And I'm thankful to be able to have a skill that I can use in a way to make money, but it's not the same thing as playing an original show. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So like what kind of shows do you get paid for?
Like weddings. I love doing weddings, corporate events. Like I do like play at the mall, the food court, or like a brunch cruise. And it's cool. It's like happy times, like everyone's happy and requesting the song that they like and stuff, but it's like, do I really want to play, Don't Stop Believing? Like, I don't feel like the world needs to hear that song anymore. But
do you just have like do you have like a huge catalog of songs that you can play?
Now I do.
Yeah,
I mean, like after that whole thing happened with losing my job, I was like, all right, girl, you better learn some songs. So that's kind of what I spent a long time doing, was just building up my repertoire. And I try to play songs that don't make me sick to my stomach. Like I try to play songs that I feel are well-written songs, but also, that people recognize and like as well. But that's a fine line to walk sometimes and hard. I wish I didn't have to do that, but that's the thing. It's like, I don't have any like crazy goals of like, I want to be like Lady Gaga, it's just like, I just want to be able to like make a living off my songs. And I have friends who do that, and I'm very jealous of them. And that would be like the ultimate goal, would be to like be able to just travel playing my own songs and making enough money to actually make a living at that. I don't need a Ferrari. I just need to pay my rent.
Yeah. So but it seems like you're doing a good job with booking your like original shows as well. Is that
It's hard. I will say that it's hard. And the one thing is, like, a lot of people are like, well, I'm ready for a booking agent. It's like, well, we all are. We all would just really love to have a booking agent, a manager, and all that stuff. But unfortunately, until you develop your own loyal fan base, those people aren't going to come knocking on your door. So I'm just really trying to focus more on like developing actual relationships with the people who care about what I do and think it's important and think it has value. And have you heard of Patreon before?
Oh yeah.
So like I have a Patreon, and it's not big by any means, but there's a handful of 10 to 15 people who I have known over a long period of time, who have like kind of watched my journey since the beginning, and feel that it's important to invest in art. And I'm so amazed by those people and thankful for their generosity. And we're not talking anything crazy. It's like people donating $2 a month or $5 a month or just something. But just that support alone, that somebody would be like, yes, I believe in what you're doing so much that I would take the time to enter my credit card information into a website. Like those are the people that I really want to continue to develop relationships with. And it's like, if that number grows from 10 to 50 to 200 to 500, like that's how I want to do it. Just slowly over time, build up people who like me as a person and care about the things I have to say and value art,
Yeah, definitely. So. Yeah, like there's that like 1,000 fan theory. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, like basically you just need 1,000 people and who are big enough fans who essentially spend $100 on you a year, and that is totally sustainable.
Totally, yeah. And I mean, it's like the ways that artists can earn money today in this world it's pretty dismal, and I think a lot of people don't know. They're not maybe necessarily educated on how a musician makes money. Like, oh, if I stream this song, so-and-so's going to make 2 pennies right now. Or if I download this song, so-and-so's going to make $3 right now. So I think just artists maybe need to do a better job at really educating people on what it means to be a consumer of music, because I mean, I'm guilty too. Like, I have Spotify on my phone, and I just listen to it all dang day and don't really think about who's getting paid in that scenario. But I try to, if I really support an artist or local musician, like I try to go to their shows, because I want to put my money where my mouth is. Like, it's hard to get people to come out to your shows, but that's how people earn a living. So I want to try to go and support the people that I care about in the same way that I hope that they would support me.
Sure.
So we got to stick together.
Definitely. And I love Patreon. I think that's that's kind of the future of music.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if it's not Patreon, even if it's something similar, like, I mean, people have opinions about crowdfunding and, oh, great, another Kickstarter from another artist. But it's like, well, if you knew how hard it was to actually make any money, like, we've sort of been forced to go this route, you know? And that is, I will say, one cool thing about being an independent musician and with all the tools and resources that we have now online, like, you can bypass the label, you can bypass, you know, anything like that, and just go directly to your fan and just be like, hey, I know that you like what I do, and I'm grateful to you for all your support. Like, would you mind kicking down a couple dollars so I can keep doing it? And generally they're like, yeah, I would love to do that. Like, they want to be a part of it, and I want to make them a part of it. Like, they're in my band, you know what I mean?
Right,
like, I want them to feel like they're on this journey with me. Like, I have a private Facebook group on my Patreon, and I don't post, like, I post a lot on social media, just like, hey, here's my next show, here's my this. But my Facebook Patreon group, that's where, like, if I have a bad show, I'll, like, literally be, like, talking to them live on my Facebook feed, like, oh, like, the guy made me cry, and blah, blah, blah. Like, they see everything, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly. And that, I think, support is just as worthwhile to me as the money that I get, you know, like, it's just got, you know, like $100 a month or something, but it's nice to be able to go to this place, like this, I know it's just this virtual world, but I feel supported there. I feel, like, lifted up there, you know, when something good or bad happens, they're, like, there to be like, yeah, you killed it, or like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened, like, you'll get them next time. And that is priceless.
Yeah,
you know?
Definitely. I think it also makes more sense for a musician to be a part of the community and not just some, like, untouchable entity on a stage.
That feels weird and, like, not even a thing anymore. Like,
right.
I think even, like, bigger name musicians recognize that, you know, and are very much more involved in their fans' lives and things. They know that they have to be now.
Yeah, I think it's kind of separating musician from celebrity.
Totally.
Yeah.
Which is cool, because I think celebrity makes you wacko.
Yes.
You know, like, we've seen that millions of times before. Like, that fame just makes people weird.
Absolutely.
I don't want to get weird. I mean, I'm already really weird. I don't need to be weirder.
All right, let's take another quick break and listen to another one of your tracks. This one is called My Beast.
Back away from a snake, play dead for a bear. Howl at a wolf, climb a tree for a deer. I know all the protocol, but something wild's coming at you. Got no clue what to do when I'm the attacker. Do I run? Do I hide? Do I dig a big hole and climb down, or stand my ground and lock eyes? Do I demand apology? Store for the flu. Ice for a sprain. Take an aspirin or two. I know these remedies for the sick and bedridden. Got no clue what to do when I'm the affliction. Do I run? Do I hide? Do I dig a big hole and climb down, or stand my ground and lock eyes? Do I demand apologies, or do I apologize when it comes to my beast? I'm just doing my best to
And we're back. So another beautiful track.
Thank you.
Where did you record this album?
So the album was recorded at Studios is what it's called, and it's run by my producer is named Alexander Dausch, and he actually just moved to Minneapolis.
Oh no.
Tear. I know, but I'm apparently going to go to Minneapolis because we're already like halfway through my other record, so I got to go finish it with him.
Oh really?
Yeah. Yeah, but I was really sad about that.
So what, as a producer, what does he do? 'Cause I don't think everyone's
does
familiar with
so
what a
much.
producer does.
Look, it's different for every producer. Some people are strictly engineers, like they know how to place the mics and what gear to use and how to capture the sound. And then other producers, in the case of Alex, this is what he is he is multi-instrumentalist, will play other parts on the record. So the way that we work together is I basically bring in the song, I'll lay down the scratch guitar and vocal track, and then we'll just sort of like build up around it. He plays drums, he plays bass, he plays keys, he plays guitar, he plays everything. And so I just really play rhythm guitar and sing, and he kind of does the rest, unless we have like a special instrumentalist, like a violin player. Jamie Shadowlight played on my record as well.
Wow, it sounds like such...
He's so talented.
A talented and helpful person to have.
It's so great, and it's just... That's how I like to work, because as I said before, I'm kind of socially awkward. It's hard for me to make relationships with people like, hey, come play on my record. Hey, come, like, let's rehearse 700 times, how I want this to sound. I'm more like a person who can sit down in a room with a person and be like, here's what I'm thinking. Can we try this 10 ways? And like hope that person doesn't hate me by the end of the day. And that's exactly Alex. He's just like, yeah, like, let's try it this way. And I'm like, well, that's gorgeous what you just played, but it's not what I was thinking. He's like, no problem. Like, delete, let's play the next thing, like, and so it's really easy to work with him. And we've known each other for so long that it's kind of turned into this beautiful relationship.
And how did you meet him? Were you looking for a producer, or how did that happen?
It's such a weird... He did my first record too. And this is like back when I was like a whole other person. Like I was married to a man. I hadn't come out yet. I was working on this album, and I was looking for a producer, and my roommate at the time was a film student. And somehow through like the magic of Craigslist or something, Alex had popped up and they had worked together on some kind of film project or whatever. So my roommate at the time, Colin, was like, hey, I know this guy. He's good at music. Like, you should contact him. And so like that's how it all started. It was great. Like we did the first record in his studio apartment in Ocean Beach, tiny little, I mean, it's as big as this room. And that's how he got the name Studios, was because it was literally in his studio. And, it's moved on to other buildings since then. But yeah, that we've just kind of always been friends since we lived together for a while. And then, so when it came time to do the solo record, I was like, Alex, help me. And he was like, I got you. And
Nice.
yeah, it was great.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And so how long did it take to record the whole thing?
I don't know, like a couple years probably.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, we took our time. I mean, it was kind of one of those things where like life's happening and your mom's dying and like when do you find time to record when you're going through all that stuff? So we just got together when we could, and as all the stuff was happening with my mom, it just sort of morphed into this other thing. Like the songs that are on this record are not the songs that I thought would be on this record when I started. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like as life kept happening, this record sort of bent itself around my experience, and that's what came out.
Sure. And so were you writing, you might have already said this, but were you writing more songs like within those 2 years?
Yeah. So new songs came out. I mean, some stuck that I was already planning on putting on, but for the most part, like new songs came into play, and then I've naturally felt more attached to them in that moment. And so I was like, this one's the one that's going on, you know, like maybe it wasn't better, but for me, it was more important to be documented.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And so when you're working, this is something I struggle with, is I also spend a long time working on albums. Like, how do you know when it's done? Like this.
Girl, I don't know. I don't know that it is. Like, that's the one. I love to be in the studio and I love putting out a record, but at the same time, it's like, it's kind of sad. You're like, okay, well, I guess that's how that song sounds now. You know, like, unless you just have millions of dollars to re-record things however you want them and keep tweaking and keep releasing other versions, like, it's like kind of stuck in time. And that's the sad part about it. I mean, even you could be totally pleased with it and think it's beautiful, but in the back of your mind, you're always like, I wonder how that would have sounded if we would have done it this way, you know? And if you're not made of money, you'll never know.
Yeah. So maybe that's the answer. You run out of time and money, so it's done.
Yeah, it's done because I have literally no more dollars. Or because, like, maybe in my case, sometimes I try to project, like, okay, when would I be ready to tour? Like, when would I be ready to put this out? You know, and then you kind of have to do all this, like, backwards math. Like, if I got a publicist, how long do they need to promote it? And then, so it's like by the time you actually get to that date, you're like, oh God, I guess it has to be done now because I am out of time.
Gotcha. So sometimes it's good to have those external deadlines.
For sure.
And so did you have a publicist for this?
For this record, yeah. I generally will only do that if it's something new's about to come out and I need help, you know. It's expensive. And
so what all does a publicist do for an album?
I have a snarky answer and I have a professional, and I'll go with the professional answer. I think, you know, they help you amplify your news to an audience that you couldn't reach as an independent artist, basically. So they have more and better contacts. They create a sense of legitimacy for you as an artist that you just can't get by directly emailing somebody. Even if you, let's say you had an editor or a staff writer's information who worked at like Rolling Stone, you can just be like, sup man, I'm the artist, here's my stuff, like please write an article. Like they just have these relationships that's what you pay for, you know, is this legitimacy and these contacts that they've developed over time. And, you know, it's hard as I do writing as like freelance writing and stuff. And I did writing a lot and I've done PR before for other entities. And so it's frustrating as somebody who knows how to put together a press release and knows how to like send out an email and stuff. It's just like, oh, what am I paying for? You know, this is crazy. But they do work hard and there is legitimacy to what they do. It's just sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I can't afford this.
Sure.
Is it really, you have no guarantee of knowing if it's going to be worthwhile or, you know, but I try as hard as I can to recycle content and just really squeeze out of every piece of press everything I can get out of it to make it as worthwhile as what I paid for it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But it is eye-opening to like open up a magazine and be like, someone paid some money for this article. Like you stop reading things at face value and being like, oh, some journalists really liked this band and decided to interview them. Like that's not how it works, you know. Somebody got paid in that process.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. I mean so basically you're paying for the contacts.
I mean, that's a very, very simple way of looking at it. I'm sure any true publicist would tell you there's a lot more that goes into it, and I don't want to like discredit what they do because it is hard work. But yeah, essentially it's you're creating a team around what you do. I have a song called, it's not recorded yet, but it's called Don't Want, and it talks about that. There's a line in that that says, I don't want to pay a publicist to like me, because a lot of times it feels like you're paying for like a friend to be like, yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good. Like we'll try to get you some news on it. But, you know, they're working with 100 other clients and it doesn't really feel like they genuinely care. But I mean, you do at least have to get somebody to like you enough to give you a shot, you know? Yeah. So it's just, there's a lot of it that doesn't feel genuine, you know?
So did they write the press releases for you, or are you creating that content?
They write it.
Is it like weird to have other people kind of describe your music?
Yeah.
Do you ever like disagree with what they say?
Yeah. Sometimes. I mean, it's obviously it's weird to hear how somebody else describes you, and like based on a 5 or 10 minute conversation, the things that they glean as the most important or, you know, newsworthy factoids about your whole entire journey as a musician. You're like, oh, I wouldn't have picked that, but okay. But you have to like respect the fact that they've been in this business. This is what they do for their work, and they know more about it. Like, I don't want to be on this high horse that's like, I know more about how to do your job than you do. You know, like they clearly are the pros at it. So you just kind of have to like swallow your own shit and be like, you guys know what you're doing. This is why I'm paying you. Like, go forth, get me press. And it's nice to, I mean, even when I've done press in the past or like had a publicist only a couple times, I still do my own as well, like, because they can only get to so much, you know. So I'm sort of the mentality of like throw a bunch of shit against the wall and see what sticks kind of person, and I don't want to like step on their toes. So I'm always like, is it okay if I reach out to blah blah blah, and they're like, yeah, fine, that's fine, you know, like, so working in tandem with a publicist as opposed to just being like, okay, I wrote you a check, go do your thing and let me concentrate on this. Like, I think control freak comes into play, and I'm just like, no, there's so many other people we could be contacting. And it's weird though, even like publicity is changing now. It's a lot of times it's like centered around like your release party or like the event of your party, and how do we get people to notice this event. And now that less and less people, I think, are coming out to shows and more people live in this digital realm, it's more like, how do I get my song placed on a Spotify playlist, as opposed to how do I get people to come out to this release party, because that's one day where you're going to maybe make some money on a cover charge. But if somebody places you on a Spotify playlist, like, you could be a professional musician if you get enough plays, you know, like, so it's all changing. It's crazy.
Yeah. Have you been able to get on any Spotify playlists?
No. That's a one little world I haven't been able to crack into yet, and I really wish I could, because I think it's it's probably going to change again and again and again, but at this point in time, I feel like that's, if you could get on a major one and get like some serious streams, then that's where you can start making a decent amount of money. Right. But
like a quarter of a cent at a time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess eventually if you're getting 5 million plays, it adds up, as opposed to like, 50. So that's one thing that I would love to find out more about, but I haven't cracked that code yet.
Yeah, I haven't either. I've seen like books and articles that are like, just follow these 10 steps. Right. And it's not like that.
I think it has a lot to do with like, again, like, maybe it's not a publicist, but maybe it's like knowing the right people and knowing how to get to the right people, which not everybody has those resources.
Sure.
Yeah,
makes sense. Yeah. So do you have any shows coming up
Yeah, I'm leaving on tour next week. I'm
cool.
going to, I don't know when this airs, but
It'll be in a little over a week.
okay. So yeah, I'm playing a few dates, like 10-ish dates, I guess, out to Portland, Maine and back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
Cool.
it sounds so much more glamorous than it is. It's really just me like, why did I decide to like sweat in a car in August for a month? Like, I don't know why I picked this as my tour, but I did.
Are you going out on your own?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, there'll be some parts where like my sister will join and my wife will join, just so I'm not like all by myself going stir crazy in my car. But I watch a lot of Dateline, and so I'm like, I don't trust anybody. I'm just like a young girl in my car at night in the middle of America. I'm like, please, Audrey, come stay with me so I'm safe.
So where all are you, or if you can't remember all of them?
No, I'm doing a couple house shows, 1 or 2 house shows, I think. Again, that's like my favorite, it's just like people who I've become friends with over time that are like, yeah, come play in my living room. And I'm like, sold.
Do you ever get paid for house shows?
Oh yeah. They're like the financial anchor of a songwriter's existence. Yeah. 'Cause generally the host will donate all the donations directly to the artist. So there's no, house fee. There's no, you get 10% of bar sales. It's none of that. It's like, here's a pile of money in your lap. And you're like, thank God I can put gas in my car now.
Do you bring like a PA with you?
I generally do. This time around, I think I might just do I have like a little 2-channel amp that might do the trick. But I try to, just in case. I have a lot of anxiety, as I mentioned, and so like I'm always like, what could go wrong? I'm always that person at the gig that's like, I have an extra extension cable, because I just like travel with everything that could maybe go wrong. And then I play in Salt Lake City. I play in Chicago. Oh, I have an exciting show in Chicago on August 8th with. Have you ever heard of the Harmolays?
No.
They're this like lesbian duo that I just love. They're just like this little dreamy duo, and like that was an Instagram connection. That's a cool way to reach out and get shows. Like I totally thought they were gonna be like, no, go away. But I was like, well, you guys, I see you guys are in the area. Will you guys let me open for you, and I'll set up the gig and all this stuff? And they were like, sure.
Nice.
Yeah. So
awesome.
That was an exciting one. And
are they from Chicago?
I think one of them is originally from Chicago. They live in Nashville now, but they're so good. You should check them out. The Harmolays.
Cool. Mm-hmm. And then, so where do you go after Chicago?
Chicago, and then I am playing at Pittsburgh, or near Pittsburgh, with Ben Shannon, who is also a wonderful songwriter that I became friends with. We were in a songwriting club together, and he's great. And then I play in Portland, Maine. And then I play in Madison, Tennessee at...
Oh, right. So you have to go there and back.
Yeah,
right?
I have to go back. Dee's Lounge, I'm opening for Wild Ponies. Have you ever heard of Wild Ponies?
Yeah, I think I have.
They're a husband-wife duo, country duo.
Okay.
They're really good.
Where are you playing in Portland, Maine? I'm from New England.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This is my first time going.
Cool.
Literally,
I love
pretty
Portland.
much the whole driving theme of this tour is just because I wanted to see Maine. And I was like, I've never been north of New York. So I'm like, this time around, I'm going to go to Maine if it kills me. And so like I met a woman who was hosting a women's songwriter night, and I'm like, can I jump on your show? And she's like, sure. So it's I'm playing at Port City Blue.
Okay.
In Portland. Cool. I'm super excited. I've never been, and I'm just like, I can't wait to go there. I'm sure it's just going to be hot. I think everywhere is going to be hot.
Yeah. But I still have some friends in Portland.
Where are you from in New England?
I grew up in Massachusetts, and I lived in Vermont for like 5-6 years. Yeah.
I knew that it was... I learned as I've been trying to book gigs that this was not the ideal month, because everybody's like, yeah, we're closed for the month of August. Like, we're not booking shows at all. Why are you here? I'm like, dang it. So next time it might be September.
Yeah, September would be good.
Yeah.
But, it's better than January.
Yeah, I'm just excited. I love traveling. That's one of my favorite things about playing music, is just waking up and not knowing how your day's going to go. This show could be crap. You could go home in a puddle of tears, or you could go home like super excited about somebody you just met. And you just, when the days aren't monotonous, that's my favorite. Time kind of like slows down.
Yeah. And so do you have like a show every night of the trip, or do you have it a little more spread out?
No, I mean, ideally I would have a show every night or more toward every night. But this time around, things didn't come together in time. I just sort of like ran out of time. And then once you pass that threshold of like being so close to the date, all the places are booked. So I'm still looking, like, if I don't fill a night, for example, I'll look for like an open mic and I'll just go try to meet some people and go be a human somewhere. You know, it's just like, that's the easiest. I've found that the easiest ways to do tour booking as an indie artist is through other musicians.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's just such a more genuine and lasting relationship. You know, like you can help each other. When they come out to San Diego, I can help them set up a gig and vice versa. So it's mutually beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. And usually the touring act gets the majority of the money.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I don't know how bands, I honestly don't know how full bands tour and make money, like at this level, you know?
Right.
Like, because I go into tours fully expecting to not make any money whatsoever. And there have been sometimes, like with the Lovebirds, we've broken even or we've come out like a little bit on top, but I've never come home with just like wads of cash in my suitcase. You know, like if anything, I'm just like, how am I gonna like eat for the rest of the month because I have no more money? But again, it's all about that fan relate. I have such nice people that, you know, I'll throw something on Instagram that's like, hey, if you want to like donate a gas gift card, or I have somebody like, you let me use some of their work points to book me a hotel night, you know, and that's just like stuff like that. I just like, it makes me want to cry. Like it's so nice that somebody would take time to do that out of their own, you know, sheer goodwill towards what you're doing as an artist. And especially like the lodging stuff, because, you know, you sleep in some shady places when you're on tour. You're like, I guess this under this futon will do. So when somebody's like, here, I want you to have a good night's sleep all by yourself with your own shower in your own bed, you're like,
nice.
Bless you, you sweet angel.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to find your music, where can they find you?
A good hub would be lindsaywhitemusic.com. That's kind of has all my links to everything you could ever want.
Nice. Yeah. And you're on all the socials, right?
Yeah,
and,
all the things.
Yeah, Spotify, all that.
All the things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, thanks, Lindsay, for coming by the studio.
Thank you. So much fun. Yeah, this is nice.
So thank you for listening to the Sunshine Sound podcast. For older episodes, you can head on over to sunshinesoundcenter.org. You can also check out some more information about Sunshine Sound Center and listen to some of the musicians that we have on our collective. You can also find us on the socials, Facebook, Instagram. Sometimes we have a Twitter that we sometimes update. And you can find some updates on there about Sunshine Sound Center, and we'll also do a little bit of promoting about some of the cool stuff going on in the San Diego music scene. If you have any questions for me, you want to suggest a guest, maybe you want to come on the show, you can contact me at Christine with a C at sunshinesoundcenter.org. And one more thank you to Tommy Bobcat for helping with the audio engineering and also for providing that sweet theme music. That's all I have for you today, but I will talk to you again soon. Have a good one.